This should have been nothing. Just a casual offseason event, a few reps, a touchdown, some highlights. But the fact that Stefon Diggs is even out there right now, that's the real story. Because when a player like that is still trying to be seen, it means the league hasn't decided what he is anymore. This might be a bigger problem than anyone expected, because Stefon Diggs stepping onto a flag football field might be the clearest signal yet that his NFL reality has changed. Not dramatically, not publicly, but fundamentally. Because think about where he is right now. Less than a year after signing a multi-year deal, he's released. Cap casualty. $26.5 million too expensive for New England. And instead of a bidding war, there's silence. That's not normal for a player of his resume. And that silence is what makes this moment matter. Because when Diggs shows up at an event like this, playing alongside Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, other recognizable names, it's easy to see it as just off-season fun. But here's the problem. Players in strong markets don't need visibility like this. They already have it. Their next contract is already in motion. Their next role is already defined. Diggs, he's still waiting. And that changes how every move is interpreted, because now every appearance becomes part of the evaluation, every throw, every route, every interaction. And this is where it gets interesting, because the NFL doesn't evaluate players in obvious ways anymore. It's not just game tape. It's not just stats. It's constant, quiet observation. Teams are always gathering information, even in moments that don't feel official. And Diggs stepping on that field, that's a data point, not a decisive one. But a piece of the puzzle, because teams already know what he used to be. That's not in question. Elite route runner, reliable hands, ability to separate in critical moments, a receiver who could command volume. But now they're asking a different question. What is he now? And more importantly, what is he willing to be? Because that's where the real tension lives. Now let's break down why his market is quiet. And it's not just one reason. It's a combination of factors that together create hesitation. First, age. Diggs is no longer in his prime window. He's still productive, still capable, but teams don't project him forward the same way anymore. They don't see 3 to 4 years of elite output. They see shorter timelines, year-to-year evaluation. Second, cost. Even after being released, the expectation of what Diggs believes he's worth versus what teams are willing to pay. That gap hasn't fully closed yet. And until it does, negotiations stall. Third, role. This is the biggest one because Diggs has spent years as a primary option, a target leader, a focal point. But many of the teams that could use him now don't necessarily need that version. They need a complementary piece, a veteran presence, a situational weapon. And that's a different identity. Not worse, but different. And not every player transitions smoothly into that role. Now, here's the part most people overlook. Timing. The NFL offseason has phases: early free agency, aggressive spending; mid-phase, value signings; late phase, opportunity deals. Right now, Diggs is drifting into that late phase, which means the leverage is shifting away from the player toward the teams. And that's why you're seeing patience across the league, because teams believe the longer they wait, the more flexible Diggs might become, financially, role-wise, structurally. And that's not personal, that's business. Now, let's go back to the Patriots, because their role in this story is still active. They released him, tried to restructure, couldn't reach an agreement, but they didn't completely shut the door. A reunion is still possible. And that detail matters more than it seems because it tells you something critical. The issue wasn't whether Diggs could play. The issue was alignment, money, expectations, fit within the offense. And those variables, they can change, especially if the market doesn't develop the way Diggs expected. So now you have a scenario where the Patriots could circle back, but on different terms: lower cost, adjusted role, shorter commitment. And if Diggs is willing to accept that, it becomes viable again. But if he's not, then he waits. And waiting is where things get complicated, because every week that passes without a deal creates a new narrative. Not always fair, but real. Questions start forming. Why hasn't he signed? What are teams seeing that we're not? Is there something behind the scenes? Even if none of that is true, and the perception builds, and the perception affects decisions. Now let's talk about the on-field side, because ultimately that's what decides everything. Diggs still has the skill set to contribute. Route precision, understanding of coverage, ability to find space. Those things don't disappear overnight. But What can change is separation, explosiveness, the ability to consistently win against top corners. And if that declines even slightly, his role naturally shifts from dominant to dependable, from focal point to complementary option. And again, that's not a bad thing, but it has to be accepted by the player, by the team, by everyone involved. Now, here's where the flag football moment ties back in, because in that environment, you don't see the full picture. No pass rush, no physical coverage, no real defensive complexity. It's not about proving elite performance, it's about showing movement, energy, engagement. And Diggs checked those boxes. He looked active, connected with teammates, caught a touchdown, reminded people he's still around, but it doesn't answer the bigger questions. It just keeps him in the conversation. And sometimes that's the goal, because in a quiet market, staying relevant is step one. Now, zoom out and look at the bigger picture. This isn't just about Stefon Diggs. It's about what happens to veteran stars when they reach this phase of their career. Still good, still capable, but no longer automatically prioritized. The league gets younger, faster, more cost efficient, and suddenly reputation alone isn't enough. Everything has to align: skill, cost, role, timing. And if even one of those is off, the market slows down, which is exactly what we're seeing. So the real question isn't whether Diggs will sign. He will. At some point, the right situation will appear. The real question is this: when that moment comes, will it reflect the player he believes he still is, or the version the NFL now sees him becoming? Because right now, those two versions aren't fully aligned. It's a strange look on the surface, but the reality behind Travis Kelce's $57.7 million deal with the Kansas City Chiefs is a lot more calculated than it seems. Because this isn't really a 3-year commitment, it's a strategic illusion. First, the headline number, $57.7 million, does exactly what it's supposed to do. It keeps Kelce's name at the top of the tight end market. It reinforces his legacy, and it signals, at least publicly, that Kansas City is still all in on one of the greatest to ever do it. But dig deeper, and the structure tells a completely different story. Only about $12 million is guaranteed. That's the key. That kind of guarantee is extremely low for a deal with this kind of total value. It essentially gives the Chiefs a clean exit whenever they want, without being tied down financially. So what you really have here is something closer to a year-to-year agreement disguised as a long-term extension. And that's where the timing matters. Kelce is 36. He's coming off back-to-back seasons under 1,000 yards, something that would have been unthinkable during his prime. The production is still solid, but the dominance isn't quite the same. At the same time, retirement talk hasn't gone away. Not even close. Every offseason now comes with the same question: is this it? So instead of forcing a traditional deal, both sides leaned into flexibility. The Chiefs avoid being locked into an aging player. Kelce keeps control over when he walks away, and both sides can reassess after each season. It's not commitment, it's alignment. There's also a bigger team building angle here. Kansas City is quietly transitioning. With uncertainty around Patrick Mahomes' health and a roster that's getting younger in key spots, the Chiefs can't afford to carry heavy, long-term deals for players nearing the end. This structure gives them room to pivot quickly if needed. And if Kelce does decline or decides to retire after this season, they're not stuck. But here's the other side of it, and it matters just as much. Kelce didn't need to do this. A player with his resume, multiple Super Bowls, All-Pros, just future Hall of Fame status, could have pushed for more guaranteed money. He didn't, which suggests something important. This isn't about squeezing every last dollar. It's about finishing on his terms. So yes, the number is big. Yes, it raised eyebrows, but the truth is this deal is less about money and more about timing. It's a soft landing, a flexible exit plan, and maybe, just maybe, the clearest sign yet that we're watching the final chapter of Travis Kelce's career play out in real time.